All right, everyone. Welcome to Dueling Scalpels. I'm your host, Dr. Abhishek Parmar. With me, as always, is my best friend, Corey Campbell.
Hi.
Man, you really got to work on that. It's so unexciting and not happy to be here.
What are you talking about? What do you want me to say?
You just want to say that you're happy to be here.
Happy to be here.
I'm happy to be here too, Dr. Campbell. Corey and I are both practicing surgeons here in Alabama, and we're here hopefully to lend some interesting insight into the world of medicine today. Talk about our shared experiences as surgeons, and maybe have some fun along the way, laugh a little bit, maybe even cry. I don't know. Dr. Campbell?
There's no crying in surgery.
I have AI give me the script for all these podcasts, and they told me to say that. Laugh actually gets even worse. The AI gets so deep into the weeds of bad puns. It's actually incredible.
Let's not do that. Let's not do that.
Welcome to the operating room of honesty and humor. I'm Abhishek, and with my partner in Scrubs, Corey, we're cutting into the heart of healthcare with some laughter stitches along the way.
Holy mackerel. That, my friend, is AI slop at its finest.
Anyone is concerned about the AI revolution and that the creativity of AI will overcome human capacity, I present to you this sample.
We,
Don't
we still
worry.
we still got some time, guys. We still have some time.
Our nonsensical drivel we're about to spew out for the next 30 minutes is much better than what AI can do. So thank you very much. So what are we going to talk about today, Corey? Pretty early on, I think we both decided that surgery was a career for us in med school. That's where Corey and I met fortuitously. It's funny, I don't remember meeting everyone I've ever met, but I remember how we met sitting outside on a summer afternoon trying to mentor some uh URIM students, underrepresented medicine.
Yeah,
And
it was a warm summer day in the deep South, deep in the heart of Dixie. there
what
were
is what is that
there were
voice?
fireflies and
You know what though? There were a whole lot of white kids in that camp though, right? Like, what were they doing there?
hey, man, they had some kind of, underrepresentation, I don't know. It wasn't
Yeah,
my job to ask, I was just there to do the job that was tasked to me.
I think a lot of those kids end up because these are all college kids. I think a lot of them ended up going into medicine. So I don't know if that was valuable or what. But we were med students at the time, and we were getting pretty burned out. It was a mixer, I think it was, and we
Yeah.
were like, yeah, we're not doing a
Nah,
mixer.
nah, we got enough friends.
We're
We're
gonna
just
sit outside on a stoop and smoke a cigarette.
Yeah, exactly, we got enough friends, we're not gonna do this. But,
Little did we know, 20 something years later, the world could get a whole lot worse.
wow. That's dark. No, yeah, I mean, like, the thing is we know each other quite a while now, and it's interesting because at the time, we didn't know that we had a very similar career goals as far as, like, wanting to do general surgery, um, and all those things. Because when you're in medicine, there's a ton of different types of doctors, from psychiatrists to neurologists to pediatrics and surgery, and so it's actually kinda strange that we both kinda decided on the same path for the most part.
Yeah,
And that was despite the
yeah.
fact what we wanted to do.
I think they've done studies that there are certain personality types that gravitate towards some specialties. I think it's not completely linear. You know, you can't take a say a Myers Briggs um and say that you will become this. But of all the medical specialties, surgeons tend to have the most homogeneous Myers Briggs, I think, categories.
You believe in that? I don't believe in that stuff, man. Those personality tests, are you a field general? Are you a caretaker? Ah, man, I don't know about all that. That's a little that's a little soft. I expect better from you than my end of that.
To that kind of populist drivel, try to throw that out there.
I I mean, how much of an extrovert are you on a scale of 1 to 10? Come on, man. I don't listen, I'm sure it has its place, but I think it's overstated to a certain extent.
I gave the caveat that it's a gestalt, right? It's not that you will become this, but in the historical pattern of surgeons being extroverted has shifted over the years, and actually more surgeons are introverted, and that we're energized by you know being left alone. The Myers-Briggs categories for you guys uninitiated. So there's where you get energy from, extroverted or introverted, how you process information, are you sensing or intuiting, how you make decisions, are you thinking or feeling, and how you approach structure, are you judging or perceiving. And
Hmm.
so, for the longest time I didn't realize what Myers-Briggs was really supposed to be, but it's just about what is your default strategy for managing situations when you're stressed. At least that's what my life coach told me. So, when you're stressed, you'd rather be more introverted, so you fall back onto these archetypes. And so it's important to understand where you're at, because if you encounter someone who's different, you need to understand what they're gonna do, right?
Well, the reason I say that is because I think for certain things, especially like career choices and everything like that, I think your personality plays a part, but I also think like things that are beyond your control play a part, like experiences that you've had, um, mentors that you've had. I mean, you do some imprinting on the people you met in certain fields, and that has nothing to do with your personality. It has everything to do with who taught you how to do what, when, right?
It's also I believe it's in flux, right? Like you can shift between the categories. Right now, we're trying to do this podcast and trick people into thinking we're interesting, so we have to be as extroverted as possible.
The extrovert introvert is the biggest axis, and that one to me, I feel more introverted now than I ever did. Like I have these kids today's feel to myself where it's like I don't know if I want to know what other people are doing or interacting with people right now because they're strange and the things they like are strange. So uh, I don't know. Maybe I don't think I'm the only one. I think a lot of people, the amount of interactions they have with people, the amount of socializing they feel is normal or invigorating for them, I think that's declining. And I feel myself doing that not only for my age, but just in general. I interact with a lot less people than I did 15, 20 years ago.
That's an excellent segue into your burnout and the state of healthcare today. How do we define burnout? How would you define burnout?
I think I would define burnout as the drive, the energy that you need to get through the day is beyond what you uh, feel like you can muster on a regular basis. So, um, I think burnout has a lot to do with not your capability, but your your willingness or your energy to do whatever you have to do.
Yeah. Wow, that's a really, really accurate description. So, the World Health Organization defines burnout as an occupational syndrome with three main features: exhaustion, feeling drained, depleted, fatigued, a reduced sense of accomplishment. So, you have to have those three features. And it's much different from just being like stressed or depressed or tired, right? You have to feel one of those things. And burnout is increasingly being a topic for discussion, I think, in medicine and healthcare, especially since the pandemic, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, yeah, I do feel a sense of some burnout from my standpoint. I think the pandemic definitely accelerated some longstanding trends in medicine that was going to contribute to that. I think for us, at least, me and you and people of our type, we have spent a lot of energy and preparation to be where we are. So, the idea is when you get there, you expect to be able to like have a flow state that you reach in your day to day. And I think the pandemic definitely interrupted that. For instance, I'm a general surgery, but I actually specialize in bariatric surgery, which was completely decimated by the pandemic. So, and then not only was it decimated by the pandemic, but as soon as we came out of the pandemic, we had the GLP-1s come in that further put pressure on those types of doctors, and I definitely felt that in 2023, 2024, and, um, it kinda made me feel like, like you said, accomplishment. You wanna build this practice, this burgeoning practice where you have doctors who refer people to you that trust you, and then, like, all of a sudden that goes away because, "Hey, we hadn't needed you in 2 years because we haven't done any case that was elective, and also, we have these medicines now." There's other things too that I think have come along with the pandemic that have made life very hard, for not just general surgeons, but doctors in general, nurses in general. Um, so one of the things I think is a big thing that we don't talk about is the loss of institutional knowledge that's happened from 2019 to today. The number of people who left healthcare to retire early or to move on to some other industry, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but when you're dealing with an industry that was already seeing job shortages in the nurses, doctors, and ancillary staff, to have that number decrease further, it definitely makes life harder for everybody who sticks around. Um,
Yeah.
and replenishing it with new people doesn't necessarily make the situation better, meaning having 20 nurses and then having to go down to 15 and then replenish it with 5 new nurses doesn't make it the same as when you had 20. Same thing with doctors and all the like. So,
I should laugh, but, when I was researching with my AI friend of on burnout and medicine, it gave me a few lines that might hit well on the podcast. One of them is, "Medicine used to burn calories, now it burns people."
wow.
I think the main consecutive theme we should have for the podcast is how AI slop is probably the greatest, entertainment value we can still retain as we go
Yeah.
through this
Yeah.
misery.
AI slop is the new internet, man.
Do you wanna talk about your experience? What happened to you, man? Burnout has hit you particularly hard, but I guess I didn't think about this kinda two-hit phenomenon, right? Like, all of us had COVID, but for you as a bariatric surgeon, you had the GLP-1 revolution that's kind of marginalized you more and kind of pushed you. It seems like you've kind of had this, I don't wanna say slow decline, but it seems like this repetitive punch in the face, right? And then that it only has kind of reached its heights over the past couple of years. Is that would you say that's true?
I would say that even though we have the same title as far as general surgeons, I think general surgery in private practice is fundamentally different now than it was before the pandemic. Not and I like I said, bariatric especially, but in general surgery altogether in private practice, because I believe that you are very much tied to the economics of a hospital. Like and your work environment and your self-determination is made based on how well or poorly a hospital is doing. I think tertiary care centers is a little different in that there's two tracks to it. There is what you make, but there's also what you represent. Like, meaning, do you represent a field of study or do you represent a specialty that can be found nowhere else? And
And so for those of you listening, tertiary care centers are kind of like the usually the hospitals, really big hospitals that are tied to med schools and institutions like that. So for me, that's the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and you can think of the big school in whatever city you live in, and that's kind of the tertiary care centers. We're a lot more insulated from the challenges of healthcare today because it's this giant, massive corporation, right? Versus you, where you're kind of this smaller hospital system, right?
well, yeah, I think that the idea is like not every hospital can take care of every problem, except tertiary care centers are hospitals that could take care of every problem. Meaning there's no other hospital that you could go to get more services. Now that's not always true. There's always some hospital that is the only hospital in the world, the only hospital in the region that does a specific thing, but that specific thing happens once in a blue moon. And the thing about that is for a regular hospital, you normally carve out what you're able to do based on your personnel and their experiences. So meaning like I would expect a tertiary care hospital to have bariatric and weight loss surgery pretty much as standard. S- When it comes to regular hospital, private hospital, it may or may not, depending on who works there or and the services they're able to offer. So that all and like I said, those kind of decisions does impact work work satisfaction.
Well,
You
it's
just
interesting you said this idea about the profit margin because there's actually a study. I think for particularly in Alabama, where access to surgeons is kind of a crisis, there's some statistics that, in small rural parts of Alabama, there's, something like 5 surgeons for every 100,000 people. So when you think about how challenging it is to get to a surgeon, and the concept you have that, a surgeon at the hospital is 40% of the profit margin, you can see how you can get really overburdened really quickly, right? So what do you think it is? Are we as modern day surgeons just soft? Because both of us have felt kind of the pangs of burnout to some degree. Something like 40% of physicians are have symptoms of burnout over the past month, and 27% of doctors are considering leaving within the next 2 years. So there's something happening amongst us.
No, first of all, listen, I know that this is gonna make the gray beards and the gray hairs in the back of the room angry, but the idea that we're soft compared to a previous generation is just complete nonsense. And the reason it's nonsense is that if that is the case, then you have to explain away how we as a group, general surgeons, do more operations now than they did 30 to 40 years ago with better outcomes than they had 30 and 40 years ago. Technology does help, but general surgery is notorious for not being something you could just technology away. There's still a guy in the room doing the case.
Or girl.
Um, mhm, well,
Or girl.
person in the room doing the case. And so if you do more cases and have better outcomes than your predecessors, how can you be soft compared to them?
Well, the question is, it's because we're manifesting burnout symptoms, right?
Yeah, but
And
that's my whole point though. They didn't do as much.
so you think it's just sheer volume. We just do more and
Well, no,
handle more.
I gave you example. All right. Think about the old time surgeon from the 60s and 70s and what they look like and what they do. Do you think that person would be okay with typing a note in front of a computer for 2 hours? And if you think he would be okay with that, do you think that person would not get burnt out after doing that for 5, 6 years? Because they didn't do that. They scribbled something with a pen on a piece of paper and kept it moving. They didn't have a nursing QI, which is somebody come back behind them and ask them, "Could you write that again in this?" That never happened. Or do you think that that guy that you said never got burned out, do you think that he used his words, his indoor voice when he had a scrub nurse who was less than 3 years experience? Do you think he used his indoor voice? Do you think that guy filled out a survey that told you about his feelings in 1975, 1980? You think that happened? Do you think they handed out those surveys and asked you how you felt? Were you gonna be here in 2 years? No. So it's all I mean,
Yeah.
it's different generations. I think there is a part of it that people realize that your career is not all that is to you. And I think having people know that is important, but I don't think surgeons these days are any less dedicated than surgeons of yesteryear. I believe the annoyances of the job have increased over time, as is always the case. Meaning there's more things to be responsible for as a general surgeon today than there was 20 or 30 years ago. There's more metrics to answer to. There's more sensitivity to have in your thought process, and
Regulatory
there's more
requirements
complicated
and
when it comes to complications both in patient interaction as well as patient disease processes. So I think there's more thoughtfulness to the same job as it was before. And
yeah.
I think all those things does tend to lead to people being burnt out.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, so the American Medical Association has an analysis that shows that there is an age discrepancy. So physicians under 40 or have higher rates of burnouts compared to older people. But I think you're exactly right. I think the requirements are harder. I don't think the younger generation. I just think, like you said, we're more thoughtful. We're more self-aware. Like, I love being a surgeon. It's my passion. And when we were 25, it was the biggest passion of our life. It was our life's calling. It was our craft and what we wanted to dedicate 100 hours a week in the hospital doing. And we would eat, sleep, and drink surgery and read about it. And it was a lot of passion that goes into it. But then you get older, and I went to the lab, I spent some time in research, which is a break from clinical training in the middle, and I realized, wow, I really love my wife. That's funny. I like spending time with her. Then I had kids, and I was like, wow, being a father is like cool. Maybe I should do that well. So I think actually the reason why you're burned out is because you're not one of the medical practitioners that can put their head in the sand. You know, you see all the injustices that's happening to your patients, and it's you have to kinda almost, I don't wanna say turn a blind eye to it.
Well, I think for us, the process of doing what you do is very important, right? Meaning, like, there is a process, and I think our training is a lot longer than a lot of the other doctors is because the process is very important. And so the whole idea is if you think process is very important, then you have to do something when process is not going the way you think it would be. Meaning, if I do an operation and things do not go as I expected because of things outside of my control, how is that frustration and how is that frustration manifested? Now I would say probably, and I know this because of the 20 years I've been in the medicine, it what the older generation did not internalize their frustrations. They let them be known plain and simple. And for us, I don't the effectiveness of doing that may have not been there, but it may have done something for that person's psyche. Now, I don't think doing that is what we do. I don't really try to verbalize or berate somebody with my frustrations, but at the same time, if you don't feel like those frustrations are being mitigated, then you don't know what to do. And I'll give you an example. When you do an operation, you normally have at least 50 or 60 instruments and equipment that is open in preparation of the operation happening. And you usually specify this either as a preference card or a document that says these are the things I want when we do this operation. I did that, and 2 years later, I still get things I don't want, and things I want I don't get.
We're gonna have a whole episode on the day-to-day surgeon for frustrations.
So my whole point is that frustration, like I said, 20 years ago, I don't know how long that goes on with those surgeons before somebody's
No, those surgeons drop an F-bomb and throw a scalpel at someone's head. That's
exactly.
what happens back then.
But, my whole thing is that that's an incredibly frustrating thing, and and people might say, "Well, is that a big deal?" I say, "Well, the whole idea is this is all process, right?" And so the process is the whole thing. Like every one of these little steps matters. Because if they didn't matter, we wouldn't discuss them. So if the number of minutes I spend washing my hands matter, then everything matters. And it's hard for everybody to get everything right. But when you get the same thing wrong over and over again, yeah, you're gonna be burnt out because of what you said. You don't feel like you can change your environment or improve it despite the fact that you feel like you know how.
Corey, we train for mass casualty events. We didn't train for inboxes.
Is that
AI,
AI
thank
slop?
you.
Is that AI slop? I felt the AI slop coming in.
All right. Well,
It's
so
good.
stay tuned for the next episode. We'll talk about medicine, pop culture
Okay.
down the road. We'll get into the weeds and be as ridiculous as possible. This was a little heavy, man. This episode, I need to lay
W-
down.
we may need to do this one over again with sock puppets or something whimsical to keep people from saying it.
Sock puppets. I'm so burned out. I'm sad.
Well, I think this should be the way surgery is. Well, this is the way it is.
All right. Have a good one.